What's going on, everybody? I'm Brian Mirando. This is the Free For All podcast, and after 2 long years, I am back and ready to rock with a brand new setup, a whole lot of new content, whole lot of new segments, and a brand new YouTube channel. Now, I'm not leaving this YouTube channel, so don't worry, but I'm updating the YouTube, organizing the channel from episodes to the Circus Sideshow to the movies to the Nobody Gives a Fuck About You Never-Ending Comedy album. I want to thank everybody that supported that. It was a lot of fun to do, and I'm still going to do it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I got some new bits written right now that I'm working on that hopefully I can get out real soon. We also will be adding a lot more bootlegs to the bootleg collection. I got a brand new bootleg coming out this week. Niels Lofgren, live from Buffalo in 1982 from the famous 2001 disco. My father actually was at that show. He was front row. It was an amazing show. Niels Lofgren actually had a trampoline on the stage. He was doing backflips during the show with his guitar. It was an amazing show. The bootleg sounds fantastic. I can't wait for you to hear it. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully by Sunday, we will have that up for you, and you guys can enjoy it. So anyway, guys, we got a good show for you today. I'm going to start off the show by sharing a story I've been trying to share for the longest time. I just never got around to share it. This was actually supposed to be a story that was going to be filmed for the Circus Sideshow, but it just never got done. So I thought right now would be a perfect time to share this story. This happened to me probably right after I filmed Free For All, the movie. You see, right after I filmed Free For All, the movie, my father had to have knee replacement surgery to get his knee fixed. So anyway, he gets the surgery done. He ends up having to go to this rehab center. This rehab center is one of those places where you stay for like 2 weeks and they rehab your knee. They give you all these exercises and stuff. So anyway, one day I go there to visit him, and he starts telling me about this woman that's there. She's also a patient. And he tells me how she used to run Kleinhans and how she got to hang out with all the rock bands from back in the day. So anyway, he introduced me to this woman. This woman had to be probably late 60s, early 70s, I'm guessing. Very nice, very sweet woman. So I ended up going to her room. I sit down, and I talked to this woman for almost an hour. She's telling me how she got to meet Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Queen before they were famous, Jim Morrison, Deep Purple, The Who, Humble Pie. Any band that you could think of from that era, she probably met. Chris Christopherson, all of them. So anyway, she starts telling me about the time she got to meet Led Zeppelin. Now, Led Zeppelin played Kleinhans in 1969. Now, in Buffalo, this is an iconic concert because this was the show where they cut the power off of them at midnight because they went past curfew. Now, she tells me right before the show starts, she went down to their dressing room to go meet Led Zeppelin. Now, she got stopped in the hallway by their manager, Peter Grant. Now, people that don't know who Peter Grant is, at the time, he was the most powerful man in the music industry. You couldn't get near Led Zeppelin for anything. It was easier to get near the president than it was to get near Led Zeppelin. He took care of those guys, kept them away. If you ever see the movie Songs Remains the Same, he's flipping out because he found out that people were bootlegging posters in the parking lot at Madison Square Garden. That's the type of person you're dealing with here. So anyway, she's walking down to go meet them. Peter Grant stops her and says, nobody goes backstage. Now, this woman's probably about 5'4", and without missing a beat, she goes, I don't give a fuck who you think you are. I own this building. I'm going to go wherever the fuck I want to go. Peter Grant stopped, backed off, and let her into the dressing room, and she got to meet Led Zeppelin. Is that cool or what? You got a 5'4" woman telling off legendary manager Peter Grant. That to me is the coolest thing ever. Now, we start talking a little bit more. And this was around the time where one of the biggest, most famous scandals in Hollywood was happening with the Harvey Weinstein case. Now, I know a lot of you are asking, Brian, why are you asking about Harvey Weinstein? Well, what a lot of people don't know is Harvey Weinstein went to college at the University of Buffalo for filmmaking. And what he decided to do to help fund his film production company, which ended up being one of the biggest movie production companies in the world. And in fact, the first movie that Harvey Weinstein produced was a little movie called Wings Over America. It was a concert film that starred a guy by the name of Paul McCartney. Yes, Paul McCartney Denny Lane, Jimmy McCollum, Linda McCartney, which in my opinion, I feel Wings was better than the Beatles. I dare you to fight me on it. But anyway, we're not even going to get into this discussion. We'll save that for another show. But anyway, they decided to start promoting concerts. And they were big. They used to run this town. Any major concert that came to town, they would promote. So I asked her, I said, did you ever work with Harvey Weinstein? She said, unfortunately, one time. He came in the office one time. Now, he didn't try to do anything. He just gave off the weirdest fucking vibe. She said, there's something off about this guy. I don't know what it is, but this something is not right. He was even a creep back then. It's not like he became rich and famous and money changed him and he got all this power. He was a fucking dick back then. Corky, on the other hand, was a cool guy. He was basically, let's just make the deal and see how it goes. Harvey Weinstein was pretty much tightwad. I remember hearing a story one time that Genesis came to town one year and they wanted, I think it was $5,000 to do a show. They came back the following year or a year later, or they came back a couple years later, they wanted $8,000. They wanted $3,000 more than what their guarantee was the previous time. Harvey Weinstein said, no fucking way, we're not paying that much. I remember hearing a story that he ripped off Eric Clapton for $10,000 for a show he did here in Buffalo. And Eric Clapton pretty much let it go and said, don't worry about it, guys, he'll pay for it someday. And the funny thing about the Harvey Weinstein scandal was I knew about that way before it hit the media. I heard about it from somebody whose name I'm not going to mention. He told me about what was going on. And I'm like, wow. But that was it. I found out about it. I knew about it. I just never said anything about it because I really didn't think it was that interesting. I look back on it now. Fuck, I should have blown the whistle on this thing. Could you imagine that? Brian Mirando of the Free For All podcast exposes Harvey Weinstein. I knew about all this shit that he was involved in, all this shit that the sex scandals and the making women sleep with him to get roles and shit. I knew about all that shit. I just never said anything about it. And to be honest, I really didn't know anything about Harvey Weinstein being a big player in Hollywood. And I didn't even know that Harvey Weinstein was actually Harvey from Harvey and Corky. I never knew what Harvey's last name was. It always used to say on the ticket stubs, Harvey and Corky. It never said Harvey Weinstein and Corky. And to be honest, I didn't know anything about his movies either. I never took note to what movies he produced. I just would watch his movies and be like, oh, okay, good movie. I never took note to who was the producer behind the movie or who was the executive producer. I didn't fucking know. I'd watch a movie and be like, oh, a good movie. But anyway, can't change the past. Anyway, guys, I just thought that was a funny story to share. We'll be back right after this commercial break. Hey, it's Brian Mirando from the Free For All podcast, reminding you to subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification button. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a middle finger. I don't give a fuck. Just do it. Do it! Well, back to the podcast. Welcome back to the Free For All podcast. I am your host, Brian Mirando. If you couldn't hear during the commercial break, I was listening to 38 Specials' Teacher, Teacher. Teacher, Teacher was a song written for the 1984 movie soundtrack, Teachers. Teachers is a movie that stars Nick Nolte, Joan Beth Williams, and Ralph Macchio. The movie pretty much is about Nick Nolte, who plays a teacher who ends up passing one of his students who really shouldn't have been passed because he's really illiterate. And the school ends up getting sued, and the teacher ends up getting into trouble, and all this other chaos ends up happening between. It's a really classic 1980 film. I saw it not too long ago. It was pretty good. I really liked it. So I think you guys should go check that out. And speaking of teachers, the other day on Facebook, I read this article about this high school principal. I'm not sure exactly what city this was in, but apparently this principal decided to take a second job at Walmart to help pay for low-income students. So this guy decides to take time out of his busy day to work at Walmart to help students pay for school supplies, books, pencils, paper, whatever these students need. And I thought that was pretty cool. But then I started to think about my old high school principal. Well, we had two of them. We had one, but she ended up being fired for doing something that I can't even believe I'm about to tell you. And if I did tell you, you wouldn't believe it. This woman was so sick and fucked in the head. She thought it was a good idea to throw a fetus into a garbage can. Yes, folks. Apparently one of our students had a miscarriage in the bathroom, and instead of calling the police, our principal found the fetus or whatever happened, we don't really know what happened, decided to throw the fetus into the garbage can and they fired her. You have to be the lowest piece of fucking shit to do something like that. And you know what? I thought about this, and I feel bad for the fucking janitor. Imagine being that guy. And I knew the janitor, too. This janitor was a cool fucking guy. He was either stoned or drunk every fucking day. He'd walk by me like, yo, what's up, dude? He'd wear an ECW t-shirt, like an original ECW t-shirt from back in the 90s. The ECW hat with like the hat and like the ponytail in the back. I used to keep Marlboro cigarettes on his cart. I used to bum them from him all the time. Really cool guy. Now imagine being this guy. You go into work, having a good day. It's a Friday. I'm guessing it was a Friday. You go in there, it's the weekend, and then you go there to go into the bathroom to clean out the garbages, and you see a fucking fetus lying right there in the garbage can. I don't know what I would do in that situation. You know, we went to a school that was so fucked up and so corrupt. There was so much shit going on at my school. It was unbelievable. We had this teacher. Oh, you're going to love this one. I actually ran into this fucking guy a couple weeks ago in a bar. And I've been waiting 10 fucking years for this moment, and this moment finally happened. But before I tell you the story, let me give a little backstory about this guy. Now, I can't say his name for legal reasons. I'm going to describe him to you. He looked like a fucking elf. Guy was short, stocky, with ears that looked like a fucking elf. Okay, this guy was about 5'4", maybe 180 pounds. Really chubby. And this fucking guy would threaten me and fuck with me every chance he fucking got. This guy, one time, said he wished that he had the power to cover up the door to the classroom up with paper so he can throw me up against the fucking wall. This guy one time, I forgot what, something happened in the middle of class. He got up and said, come on, big man, you want to go? I stood up, got in his face, I clenched my fist up thinking, I could drop this motherfucker. This guy probably weighed me about 150 pounds, but I was willing to do it. And then, all of a sudden, he, takes me on the hallway and, kind of try to shrink it off. This guy was a fuck. Another time, this fucking guy, there's a gas station not too far from my house, about a 10-minute walk from my house. One day, I'm going to get a pack of smokes. I come back. I'm walking across the street. I see him and his wife drive around the corner. He's sitting there waving at me. Next time in class, I'm sitting there, I was talking to a student. We'll get into her in a second. I'm not going to say her name. Something happened. We were going at it. We were mouthing off back and forth. He goes, Ryan should shut his mouth because I could have ran him over the other day with my car. This is the same motherfucker. I forgot something else happened. He said he was going to have somebody take care of me, which means he was going to have somebody try to come find me and beat me up. But you know what happened to this guy? This guy had a secret. This guy was a predator. This guy ended up hitting on a 17-year-old fucking girl. He ended up getting, I don't know if he ended up getting fired, but what happened was he was hitting on this 17-year-old girl. We would see this in the classroom. We'd see her over in the corner, hand her envelopes, which we found out later was full of money, and he would make comments to her, apparently, I don't know, call her, or whatever the fuck else happened. One day, out of nowhere, he just disappeared. He disappeared. And we found out later that she ended up reporting him, and he ended up suspiciously disappearing. Now, fast forward to a couple weeks ago. I'm sitting in a bar, okay? I'm sitting in a bar, having a Jack and Coke. I look over. I see this motherfucker. I'm like, He goes, yeah. I'm like, remember me? He goes, give me a minute. Oh, Brian Moran's like, hey, man, what's going on? He looks at me shaking like he saw a fucking ghost. He comes over to me, shakes my hand. Hey, what's going on? Now, a friend of mine did some work at his ex's house. I'm not saying any names. Worked at his ex-wife's house. Now, they're divorced now. He doesn't know that I know. So I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? Just looking at him like, you motherfucker. I'm like, how's your wife doing, man? Oh, I'm not married to her anymore. What a shock, right? I know, it shocked me too. I'm like, what's going on? The whole thing. Meanwhile, he's just staring at me like, knowing what I knew. So he walks up. The rest of that night, all I could think about was taking a bottle and smashing this motherfucker over the head with it. This is the same motherfucker that I remember one time I got suspended for getting into a fight. He said he was going to show up at the meeting I had to go to and make sure I could never get back to the school again. This is the same motherfucker that said I would never accomplish anything in my life. Well, guess what, fuckface? I got 2 degrees and you got 2 ex-wives. How's that sound for you, asshole? Now, later on in the night, the drinking continued on because I'm not leaving no fucking bar because some fucking asshole. But, the night went on. We had to leave the bar. So outside they had this, band playing. So I'm like, okay, I'll sit there. He probably left. He's sitting there right in front of me. I'm just sitting there drinking, staring down this motherfucker. I went out in the front of the bar, had a cigarette, just sitting there back and forth. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I do it? Should I not do it? Go back to my seat. And I decided, guys, at that moment, no, it ain't worth it. There's too many witnesses around. There's too much shit at stake. No, I'm not going to do it. So I ended up getting up and walking away. Because I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I've had more problems with teachers than I've had with the fucking police. And I was not willing to break my not going to jail record with this asshole. So the moral of the story is, guys, if you have kids, just watch the teachers that they're around, please. Because these guys are fucked in the head. Not all of them. Not all of them. There's a lot of good teachers out there. I got friends that are teachers. They're great people. But there are some bad people out there, and you really need to watch out for them. So anyway, guys, we're going to be right back after this short commercial break. Any of you have or had a problem with a teacher like I did, please leave your comments down below. I'm very interested in what you have to say. Welcome back to the Free For All Podcast. I am your host, Brian Mirando, and it's that time again where we announce Free For All's Pick of the Week. And my Pick of the Week this week is a sports podcast from my rivals, 71 Blitz. 71 Blitz is a part of the built-in Buffalo Network and is dedicated to all Buffalo sports. It's a podcast that premieres once a week and is hosted by Free For All alumnus Gabe, along with Doug Young, Mike Ritz, and DJ. And we're going to hear a little bit of that podcast right now.
Who was your favorite quarterback playing with? I think I know the answer to this.
Yeah, easy. The Magic Man, Fitzpatrick. Yeah.
I knew the answer.
Yeah, dude, because it's just so crazy. It was organic how we met. We ended up meeting together on the airplane, flying into Buffalo as pretty much quote unquote scout guys. And we riding in, and next thing you know, we are the scout guys. And then we just from there, we was just creating though. And I promise you, I wouldn't have been able to do any of the things that I've done without him sacrificing, his job also. Because a lot of those 3-step drops at that time, it was quarterbacks had to be robots. They couldn't kind of slide and take some time, and do this.
Yeah,
It was doing, and it helped me a ton. So I give all my props to Fitz.
I knew that.
Such an amazing podcast, you guys. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Breaker. The link to the podcast will be in the description below. And while you're there, don't forget to check out the old interview I did with Gabe, along with Matt Mitzer from Crooked Generation. We had a lot of fun doing the show. So anyway, guys, my time's just about up here. I want to thank everybody for tuning into the podcast. It's so good to be back. I can't wait to continue to do the show. I got so many good ideas. So much more content is to come. In the meantime, go check out Free For All the movie, past interviews. Go check out the Bootleg Collection. Go check out the Nobody Gives a Fuck About You, the Never Ending Comedy album. Go check out 71 Blitz. Do good to others like you do to yourself. Uno Sakanomura. Lots of love. Thank you.